Now that we have looked squarely at where we are, a good question to ask might be, how did an intelligent, well-meaning species, who for the most part only wanted to make the world better and more secure for their children, end up in such a condition? What could possibly explain how we got into our current predicament? How did we get here? Someone who looked deeply at this question was Thomas Berry, a cultural historian and cosmologist who spent much of his life examining the relationship between humans and the community of life on Earth.
The great work of our times, I would say, is moving the human community from its present situation as a destructive presence on the planet to a benign or mutually enhancing presence. It's that simple.
Thomas Berry says that the primary problem with Western civilization is that it creates and perpetuates a radical separation between the human world and the natural world. That we've given all the rights to the human and no rights to the natural world. We think we're behaving very rationally, that we're on this kind of logical economic course, but actually we're heading toward our destruction, and the only way to explain it is that we've been locked into a kind of mythic entrancement, a worldview that's become dysfunctional and therefore destructive.
According to Thomas Berry, our industrial age could be characterized as a period of technological entrancement, in which our obsession with progress has us marching toward an ill-defined magical paradise somewhere in the future. A future in which we have mastered the Earth and everything on it, without any limits. And so, it could be said that we in the modern world are living in a kind of trance. Indigenous people would call this trance the dream of the modern world. This dream could also be called our current worldview, a way of seeing the world we're not even aware that we have. A worldview is held in place by a set of beliefs and unexamined assumptions that we're completely unaware of. Like glasses we've worn so long, we don't even know we're looking through them anymore. People's actions correlate with their worldview. We take actions consistent with how we see the world. And often, those actions produce outcomes we didn't predict or intend. So when our actions produce outcomes we're not intending, it's important to identify the unconscious, unexamined assumptions that generated those actions in the first place.
All the crises we're facing today can be seen as the unintended results of the unexamined assumptions that permeate the modern industrial society and our own thinking. So let's look at some of these unexamined assumptions.
One way to characterize the cosmology that really is at work in our culture is this, that the natural world, the Earth, is there for us to satisfy our needs and desires, whatever they might be. So we want to make things, we use the Earth, we make things. Or we think of it as something like a lumber yard. In fact, we use the word resource. So the Earth is filled with resources that are there for us to use as we see fit. Now, that orientation actually is not that bad so long as humans are not that powerful. But suddenly, when we become so massively present, that orientation turns out to be completely pathological.
In modern society, many of us believe that our job as smart shoppers is to get the highest level of comfort and convenience at the lowest possible price. We assume that when we buy something, the price we pay reflects the full cost of making it. According to Annie Leonard in The Story of Stuff, maybe not.
I was walking to work and I wanted to listen to the news. I found this cute little green radio for $4.99. I was standing there in line to buy this thing and I was thinking, how could $4.99 possibly capture the cost of making this radio and getting it into my hands? The metal was probably mined in South Africa. The petroleum was probably drilled in Iraq. The plastics were probably produced in China. And maybe the whole thing was assembled in Mexico. $4.99 wouldn't even pay the rent for the shelf space it occupied until I came along, let alone part of the staff guy's salary who helped me pick it out, or the multiple ocean cruises and truck rides pieces of this radio went on. That's how I realized I didn't pay for the radio. So who did pay? Well, these people paid with the loss of their natural resource space. These people paid with the loss of their clean air, with increasing asthma and cancer rates. All along this system, people pitched in so I could get this radio for $4.99.
Many people assume that we can create a healthy society by concentrating solely on our success as individuals.
We are not just individuals. We are part of a society, a worldwide society. We're interdependent, and that interdependence flows at many levels. It's spiritual, it is psychological, it is economic. The notion that we can exist and prosper just individually, based purely on what we do and what we earn, is a rather new notion in history, and it doesn't work.
Another prevalent assumption is that racism is primarily an expression of personal prejudice and the way individuals treat each other. The effects of institutionalized racism are harder to see and to change.
Racism has a cost to every human being on this planet. Racism has dehumanized all of us. We are not taught how it was set up, how it came into being, how the very fact that we have something called race means that we are ranking people and that we are giving white people more value than everyone else. Until we understand the depth of that, it's going to be hard to undo racism. It's going to be hard to change. What we try to do is change people that aren't making it in the system, rather than changing the systems that make sure that some people don't make it.
We don't just have unexamined assumptions about how we relate to the planet. We have underlying assumptions that we haven't examined about how we relate to each other. We have a society that believes that we have throwaway resources, throwaway species, and throwaway people. The same mindset that says, I can ball up this can and throw it away. The same mindset says, I can ball up this child and throw that child into a prison forever for a mistake that child made, similar to the mistake my child might be making with drugs or whatever. That's the core mindset.
When you say you're going to throw something away, where's away? There's no such thing. And where away actually is social justice issues and environmental justice issues. Every plastic bag, plastic cup, plastic to-go container, that is the petroleum complex in Africa, Ecuador, Colombia, Alaska, you name it. Every paper bag, paper plate, paper napkin, that is a forest. Every thing that is called waste or disposable is the ways in which we are saying that it is acceptable to throw our planet and its people away. Disposables are one of the huge magnifiers of how we've lost our connection to the sacred. Just take it for granted that we're gonna go to the coffee shop and get coffee that came from an exploited community somewhere where a forest was destroyed for a monoculture, put it in a paper cup that used to be a forest, put a plastic lid on top of it that used to be an indigenous community somewhere in a beautiful area, drink it, and then throw it away where it goes back and pollutes a nature community or a human community at the end. I am so fiercely passionate about it because I know in my heart that as long as we are trashing the planet and trashing each other, a healthy and holistic and healed world is not possible. We cannot have peace on the earth unless we also have peace with the earth.
The dream of the modern world is constructed almost entirely out of assumptions that have simply been accepted for generations. And over time, these assumptions have become part of the fabric of society, profoundly embedded in our institutions. Questioning these assumptions and the systems that perpetuate them is a powerful first step in changing our worldview and waking up from our collective trance.